In 2026, adventure bikes are outselling cruisers at dealerships that spent 40 years living off chrome and V-twins. 6 machines are driving that shift across America. And the one sitting at number 1? It quietly became the bike every other brand is trying to beat. Number 6. CFMoto Ibex 800. Start with the price, because that's the whole story here. $9,550. That's what gets you onto a CFMoto Ibex 800. For that money, most brands hand you a stripped-down middleweight with a tiny screen and a shrug. CFMoto hands you a full-color display, cruise control, ride modes, and a 799cc parallel twin. Here's the part that matters. That engine shares its DNA with KTM. CFMoto builds the very same motor that powers KTM's 790. So you're getting roughly 95 horsepower of Austrian design wearing a Chinese price tag. On the road, that translates to easy triple-digit passing power and a bike that never feels out of breath on a mountain climb. Loaded down with luggage, it still pulls clean. I'll be honest about where this bites. Resale is the question mark nobody can answer yet. CFMoto is still building its name in America, and used values haven't been tested over 10 years the way a Suzuki has. The dealer network is thinner too, so a part can mean a wait. But for a rider who buys to keep and actually ride, that's a footnote, not a deal breaker. Ask the owners flooding the adventure forums and they'll tell you the same thing. Nothing else at this price gives you this much motorcycle. Stack it against a Suzuki V-Strom or a KTM 790, and the CFMoto undercuts both by thousands while matching them on paper. That is exactly why it opens this list. It's the bike dragging brand new riders into adventure touring who never thought they could afford it. Number 5. Suzuki V-Strom 800DE. Here's a problem nobody at the dealership wants to admit out loud. Most big adventure bikes are too tall and too top-heavy for the average rider to enjoy once the pavement ends. The Suzuki V-Strom 800DE was built to erase that problem. It carries its weight low and sits lower than almost every rival, so getting a boot down at a stoplight stops being a nervous moment. Under the tank lives a 776cc parallel twin making 84 horsepower. On paper, that's mid-pack. In the real world, it's the sweet spot. Enough grunt to loft the front over a log, calm enough to trust on a wet interstate at 75. Long travel suspension and a 21-inch front wheel mean this thing actually earns the DE badge when the road turns to gravel. Price? $11,799. That lands right in knife fight territory with Yamaha's own middleweight. Now the downside. It's heavy. Owners coming off a Ténéré 700 feel those extra pounds the second a trail gets technical. The electronics are basic next to the European bikes, and the warranty runs just 12 months, which feels stingy in 2026. But here's my take. For someone who wants one bike that commutes Monday, tours the weekend, and still plays in the dirt, few machines make fewer excuses. Suzuki reliability is the stuff of legend, and this engine is already proving it. That's why the V-Strom keeps stealing sales from flashier names. It just works, and it does it for a price that makes the fancy badges sweat. Number 4. Yamaha Ténéré 700. Picture a rider 200 miles into nowhere, phone dead, gravel road turning to sand. The bike they want underneath them, more often than not, is this one. Yamaha's Ténéré 700 earned that trust the hard way. At its heart is the 689cc CP2 twin, just over 70 horsepower of the most honest engine Yamaha makes. Numbers won't sell you on it, the feel will. It's light, it's narrow, and it flicks through a rutted trail like a dirt bike wearing touring boots. For 2026, Yamaha finally added ride-by-wire, traction control, and ride modes, so the purist's darling now has a safety net for the rest of us. The price sits around $10,999. That's less than the Suzuki it fights, and you're buying a legend that holds its value like almost nothing else in the class. Now the honesty section. There's barely any wind protection, so a long slab day at 80 will beat on your chest and shoulders. The seat turns into a park bench after 2 hours, and there's still no cruise control, which stings on a machine people genuinely tour on. Here's what I'd tell a friend. If your riding leans dirt, this is the smartest money on the entire list. Want a Ténéré with a bigger tank and serious range? Yamaha will sell you the new World Raid for $12,999. But the standard 700 remains the purest expression of what adventure riding is supposed to feel like. That's why it refuses to leave these lists. Number 3. Ducati DesertX V2. Line the new DesertX up against the one it replaces, and the story writes itself. The outgoing DesertX cost $18,995. This year's version costs $16,995. Ducati made it better and knocked $2,000 off. That almost never happens. The magic is the new engine. Gone is the old 937cc motor, replaced by a fresh 890cc V2 making 110 horsepower. 70% of the torque is on tap by 3,000 RPM, which in plain English means it pulls the instant you crack the throttle. No waiting, no drama. Bolt that to a 21-inch front wheel and cross-spoked tubeless rims, and you've got a real off-road weapon that still looks like art in a parking lot. It's lighter than before too, tipping in around 460 pounds wet. Where does it bite? The seat sits at 34.6 inches, so shorter riders will be up on tiptoes, full stop, and it's still a Ducati, which means service intervals and dealer coverage you plan your life around. My opinion, this is the most desirable bike on the list by a mile. Against a KTM 890 Adventure or a BMW F900 GS, the Ducati matches the capability and walks past both on pure soul. That price cut is what turned it from a dream bike into a genuine cross shop. That's why the DesertX is suddenly taking sales it never used to touch. Number 2. Harley-Davidson Pan America 1250 ST. 150 horsepower, 91 pound-feet of torque. A 1250cc Revolution Max, the fifth twin that revs like a sport bike and pulls like a freight train. Those numbers are the headline, and the Pan America ST earns every one of them. When Harley built this, nobody believed Milwaukee could make a real adventure machine. Then people wrote it. That engine doesn't just make power, it makes the kind of mid-range that turns a highway on ramp into a grin. Roll the throttle at 70 and it surges like the road just tilted downhill. The ST trim rides on 17-inch street wheels with adaptive ride height that drops the seat when you stop, then lifts it back up when you go. For a rider intimidated by tall adventure bikes, that trick alone is worth the ticket. Price lands at $19,999. That is real money, but look at what it's fighting. Against a BMW R 1300 GS, it's cheaper and every bit as fast. Now the flaws, because there are some. Those 17-inch wheels mean the ST is built for pavement, not serious dirt. So don't buy this one expecting to conquer a rock garden. And Harley's adventure dealer experience is still young next to the Germans and the Japanese. Here's my honest read. This is the bike that proved America could build a world-class ADV, and the value for the performance is genuinely hard to argue with. That's exactly why it sits this high. Number 1. BMW R 1300 GS. Imagine one bike that can cross a country on Monday and climb a fire road on Saturday without changing a single thing. For 20 years, that bike has had a name, and in 2026 it wears the badge R 1300 GS. This is the machine the entire industry measures itself against. At its core beats a 1300cc shift cam boxer twin, putting out 145 horsepower. More important than the number is how it arrives. Low-down torque that makes a fully loaded bike feel weightless. Then a top end that embarrasses machines it has no business keeping up with. BMW also stripped serious weight out of the last generation, so despite all the touring bulk, it drops into a corner like something much smaller. The tech is almost absurd. Radar cruise, semi-active suspension, and an optional automatic shifter that swaps gears for you. Now the truth. The sticker starts at $20,395, and that's before a roughly $1,100 destination charge and the options every GS buyer somehow ends up adding. Load it up and you're staring down 26 grand fast. It's also tall, and it's a handful at a standstill. But here's why it wins. Against a Ducati Multistrada or that Harley we just covered, the GS still does more things well than anything else on two wheels. Ask any owner. They don't call it a purchase, they call it the last adventure bike they'll ever need. That is what number 1 looks like. So which of these 6 is actually taking over America? All of them in their own lane. But if I'm spending my own money, the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE gives the most real riding for the least cash, while the BMW stays the one to beat. Which one would you park in your garage? Tell me below and subscribe for the next breakdown.